Topic 55B, the Presidency of Jimmy Carter, 1977 to 1981. You should take notes during this podcast, pause it as necessary, and listen to it as many times as you need to, as you will need them to complete future graded assignments. I recommend that you take notes in the Cornell method of note-taking as presented in Podcast 3 of this course. By the end of this podcast, you should be able to identify some successes and challenges of the Jimmy Carter administration in the domestic and diplomatic realms, and understand why Carter lost the election of 1980 to Ronald Reagan. As we discussed in Podcast 55A, Americans experienced a lingering malaise during the mid-1970s. After suffering our first defeat in a foreign war in Vietnam, the United States was forced to confront criminal activity by its president in the Watergate scandal and a prolonged economic slowdown known as stagflation. President Ford's inability to improve the American economy and his pardon of Richard Nixon led citizens to elect a member of the opposite party, Democrat Jimmy Carter, in 1976. Unfortunately for Carter, forced to confront similar economic and diplomatic challenges, this president dealt with them in a similarly ineffective manner, leading to Carter's own single-term presidency. Though Americans celebrated the bicentennial of the United States with great fanfare, 1976 witnessed continued stagflation due in part to rising energy costs. President Carter established a new cabinet-level position to address these issues, the Secretary of the new Department of Energy, as well as a federal energy policy that stressed conservation and new technology such as solar and nuclear power. Stagflation remained stubborn, however, throughout Carter's presidency. Two events at the end of his tenure marred his efforts to steer national energy policy in a new direction. In 1979, a partial nuclear meltdown at the 3 Mile Island nuclear plant in Pennsylvania raised greater concern among anti-nuclear activists and the general public for this alternative power source. In that same year, the Iranian Revolution decreased global oil supply, leading to another shortage, long lines, rationing, and high gas prices in the United States. As we discussed in Podcast 47B, the CIA had played an important role in securing the position of right-wing Iranian strongman, the Shah Reza Pahlavi, in 1953. During his 44 years in power, the secular Shah lost support from traditional Muslim clergy and banned political activity among communists as he sought to modernize Iran along Western lines. In January 1979, revolutionaries led by the Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini overthrew the Shah's government, abolished the Iranian monarchy, and established an Islamic fundamentalist state. Later that year, some students who supported the Iranian Revolution stormed the U.S. Embassy in Tehran and held 52 American diplomats and citizens hostage for 444 days, the longest recorded hostage crisis in history. President Carter's failure to successfully negotiate the victims' release and a bungled rescue attempt that ended in the deaths of 8 members of the U.S. military has been cited as a major reason for Carter's defeat in the election of 1980. Despite the diplomatic disasters of the Iranian Revolution and ensuing hostage crisis, President Carter did achieve two notable foreign policy successes during his short time in office. In 1977, Carter invited Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin and Egyptian President Anwar el-Sadat to the presidential retreat in Maryland known as Camp David. Neighbors Israel and Egypt had gone to war several times between 1948 and 1973, causing increasing instability to the Middle East and thus the steady supply of petroleum to the United States. President Carter's invitation resulted in the cessation of hostilities between these two countries and in Begin and Sadat being awarded the Nobel Peace Prize in 1978. In addition, President Carter also guaranteed the return of the Panama Canal to that country in 1999 with the signing of the Torrijos-Carter treaties in 1977. Since 1903, the United States controlled the canal after President Theodore Roosevelt had helped orchestrate Panama's independence from Colombia by helping to foment a revolution there in order to secure land for a canal that would dramatically decrease shipping costs between the Atlantic and Pacific. Although Carter's conservative critics in Congress disagreed with its return to Panama, the move is generally considered to be consonant with human rights that guarantee a people's sovereignty over their territory. President Carter's efforts at Camp David and in Panama, as well as his formidable post-presidency activities with Habitat for Humanity, monitoring elections worldwide, and other social and economic development work, resulted in his 2002 Nobel Peace Prize. Despite Carter's successes, however, his inability to ameliorate the American economy and to resolve the Iranian hostage crisis led Americans to seek out a president they perceived as stronger and tougher during the election of 1980. They found this person in Ronald Reagan, elected in a landslide victory that year, and more about whom we'll learn in the following two podcasts. For now, remember the learning objectives for this podcast. Write out each one in a sentence or a paragraph now. If you find that you cannot do so, go back to the beginning of the podcast, listen and watch again, and pause it as necessary to supplement the notes you've already taken until you can easily answer all of the learning objectives above. Good luck!